Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Books and Beer. I'm Luke Richardson, and I'm joined again twice in the same week. Steve Moore, how are you, mate? We're
I'm
making too
good.
much of a habit of this.
Well, I can't help it if I'm your only friend, mate.
I know.
Um,
I thought people were queuing up to come and join me on a Wednesday afternoon to drink beer and
well,
chat about books, but
I know that they are. I know you've got some great guests lined up. Some more great guests lined up.
I mean, I didn't intend to talk to you twice in a week. It just so happened that you released another book last week, and we chatted about that, and then and then obviously we booked this in, hadn't we, in advance? So
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure that I've
it
got
just so
this.
happened that you you
There you
got
go.
a bit of me there. I'm
Yeah.
going to crack open this beer straight away. It's a New Zealand pale ale. There we go. I know it's very early in the morning for you, so you may be joining me on a
Yes.
coffee.
No, I've just got water. I've got too much important work to do today, so I shan't be drinking today.
No worries. Do you know what? If it were 10 a.m. for me or whatever it is for you, I would probably
11.
be doing the same. Yeah, beer at 11 in the morning and just productivity slumps for the rest of the day in my mind.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Not that I'm against it, but I am not this week. No, NaNoWriMo is well underway, so I need to focus.
Yes. Should we talk about that? Do you mind talking about that? I know we're talking really about your
Happy to.
Bodeian books today, but yeah, I think that's a really interesting thing, having sort of seen behind the scenes of what you're working on.
Yeah. Well, should I briefly explain what Nano is for those who don't know? NaNoWriMo is an acronym, National Novel Writing Month. And I was introduced to it 10 and a half, 11 years ago by Leslie, who was my girlfriend at the time. And she was a bit of a writer, and she challenged me to write a book for NaNoWriMo. And of course, I didn't know what it was. So she explained. Now, there was this guy from San Francisco I believe in the 80s or 90s, and he was so tired of some of his writer friends not ever finishing a project. So he put together this thing where, using the Great Gatsby as the model, that was only 50,000 words. The idea was to write from scratch with no real planning, 1,666 words a day for 30 days, at the end of which you would have 50,000 words and potentially the bones of a novel. So I think it's a brilliant idea. There's no money involved. You just sign up and get stuck in.
It is a great idea, and actually, with your inspiration, I've done a bit of writing this week. I've not averaged at 1,666 a day, but
No, it's just a
I,
guide. I mean, some days you'll hit 2,000 without even knowing it, and so you probably will average enough over the course of the. And I'm targeting 2,000 words because I want my book to be 60 plus thousand rather than the 50. But
yeah,
uh,
and I suppose it is important. It's important for me to take time off in that. I couldn't. I don't. I think I'd struggle. I'm not going to say I couldn't. I think I would find it difficult to write 30 days without a break right the way through.
yeah, I probably won't. I'll probably have a day off every 4 or 5 days.
Yeah,
But I'm over my target so far anyway. If you don't mind, I'll just share
yeah.
this
Please do. I'm interested
very
to hear.
very high tech chart. Can you see that?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's just time I start each writing sprint, time I finish, and word count. And that was for Monday. This was Tuesday, and I've started Wednesday. So I think total is about 8,000 words so far, and that is over 12 writing sprints, which average around half an hour each, something like that. So I
God.
feel pretty good with my progress so far.
Yeah, yeah. No wonder you don't want to just stop and have a beer.
Well,
You're
well, I
just
do,
next one, next
do
one,
want
next one.
to, but I'm not going to.
Yeah.
But,
No, I know the feeling. I know the feeling.
yeah, and having the data down right in front of me, it's interesting because it keeps me focused. Like, I know I need to do at least another 3 or 4 sprints today to keep my target up. But also, I'm learning when am I most productive because I start quite early, and actually I do slow down a bit as the day goes on in terms of words in about the same time, which is kind of interesting, I think.
Yeah, that is interesting. I know I'm the same from experience. Like the best writing sprint, as you say, is the first one of the day. Get in there, get those fresh words down whilst you're sort of fresh and thinking about it. So, is each one of those sprints a particular chapter, or do you have a length in mind when you sit down? 1,000 words or whatever it might be.
Um, Pretty roughly, I aim for 50 chapters per book, roughly about 1,000 words. But obviously, some need to be short because it just is just a one small thing, or it could be a scene, and a scene can actually be over 2 or 3 chapters, but you can't have big, long 3,000 word chunks. Not in my genre anyway. So no, I try to go down my list of chapters. I've got a little note in each one what I'm going to be writing about. And if I really am focused on getting some words down, but that chapter looks like it might be too difficult, I just skip that and go to the next one, and then go back to one when I feel more ready for that.
Like the start of the day, you'll pick a difficult chapter then, or one that's perhaps a little more challenging.
I haven't actually had to do that yet on this NaNoWriMo, but in the past I've definitely done that, and I'm sure I will at some point, because when there's really complex fight scene or something a bit more emotionally charged, that's naturally slower. You want to get it right. So
yeah. What I find the quickest way to do, and I don't know if you do the same, is to write all of the chapters from one perspective in a go, and then come back and do the other perspective. So, for example, in my books, and in our book, in fact, we had one strand that was Kayla doing what Kayla does, and the other strand, which was the baddie, or O'Shea, doing what O'Shea does. We're allowed to say it now because people have read it, or they should have. Yeah, if not, it's on Amazon now. Search Kayla Stone, you'll find it. Yeah. And then afterwards, sort of put them in position so that they connect together. Do you do that, or do you find that you skip? You do 1, 1, 1, 1. You know,
I just write chronologically as the story goes. Yeah. That sounds. I mean, if that works for you, that's great. But that sounds too complicated for my pea brain. So it's
just the tone of voice, I find, because like O'Shea has a different tone of voice to Kayla, as an example. So I find that when I'm in that mode of writing him, it's easier just to flow with that than then flip to another one. That's what I've found anyway.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think I've heard other people do that too, and I get that, but I don't think that would work for me. I don't have an issue switching between characters, but I definitely I try to write chronologically, because that's just the flow of the story for me.
Yes,
that's probably easier for me.
And you get excited by it that way. I find if you write chronologically, you're the first reader. I know a lot of people use that term, and you're like, oh, this is great. What's going to happen next? And actually, that power of the story pulls you through the writing process, doesn't it? Sometimes.
Well, because story is chronological usually, and I already know what's going to happen next. So it's just an easier process to move straight, rather than switching locations and switching scenes. But I mean, there's no right or wrong way for any budding writers in the group listening. There's no right or wrong way. Whatever's comfortable, and this is the way I do it.
That's it. It's just what works for you. Let's have a quick jump over to the comments and have a look, and then we'll come back and talk about the books that are actually sort of the focus of today's talk. Fiona, great to see you, Fiona. Thank you for tuning in live. I know you often watch afterwards, Fiona. It's great to see you live and direct. Ray is joining us as well. Hi, mate. How you doing?
Morning, Ray.
Alison's got the third comment. God, Alison, slow to the draw today, Alison. Normally you're there at, first one, ready to go. Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining us. How many people are you cooking for today, Alison? I think last Wednesday it was about 45 or something. And John as well, a fellow writer, a man who's got a novel in him, and a novel he's working on.
Very cool.
Yeah. Oh, here we are. I'm on the 14th page and the second chapter of my first. So the second chapter.
Well done.
Yeah, really good work. I'm looking forward
to.
I'm looking forward to reading it when it's done, when it's finished. Alison says that's amazing, Steve. A huge commitment, and she says I'm loving the shirt. I'm sure she says that about you and not me, because I wear really boring clothes,
Alison, this shirt, I remember buying it back in Bali about 5 years ago. It was my brother's 40th birthday party in Bali, so I remember buying it there.
Oh, right. Nice.
I think it was about $1.
Ray says, have either of you started outlining a new book? And lo, it completes itself on a short story length. I don't understand what you mean, Ray. Sorry, can you just retype that? And it ends up completing itself on a short story's length. Is that what you mean?
I think Ray means if we're planning out a full-length novel but end up basically running out of ideas, and it ends up just being like a novella, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't think that's... In fact, that happened to me the other way around. My book, Berlin, I know you know this, Steve. I intended it to be a novella. And I wrote it and then was like, no, this is too short, and went back and put a load of things in and sort of. And I think you've done a couple of ones the same way, Steve, haven't you? Where you've gone back and sort of
Yeah,
thought they needed more adding to them.
Yeah, Tiger Temple and Samurai Code were both novellas to begin with, but they're now both 60,000 word books, which have basically doubled the size. But I did do one the opposite way. I was planning out another. I'm not going to go into the details of the story, but I was planning out a different story, and I'd even started writing it, and it turns out to be The Silent Night, the one which starts out in your pub in Nottingham.
Yes, and it's got a Luke in it as well, hasn't it?
It does have a Luke in it. It's got two well-known names in that book, actually.
Yeah.
But that was meant to be a full-length novel, but then I got invited into an anthology, and I decided that in order to finish it quickly enough, it had to be a medium length. I think that's about 30,000 words, I think, something.
Yeah, it's a great book. I enjoyed reading it, yeah. I think because it's set in Nottingham as well, although it starts in Nottingham, as you say.
Yeah.
Ray says an idea runs its course. Yeah, so I think we answered that. Perfect. So we're here today really to talk about. Oh, where's the thing? There it is. To talk about these books. Woo! Which the covers of which are great, and I've read 3 out of 4 of them. Yeah, here we go. I've read 3 out of 4 of them. I never got to Eldorado Gold, so that's on my to be read list. That needs to be read, and I have to say I've enjoyed them all. A little bit of a, they're a bit different to your normal books. There's a bit more humour, a bit more sort of. They're a bit more not cartoonish is the wrong word, but they are a bit. There's a bit more sort of. They're not quite as. There's not the realism I think that you put in your normal series.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I would say these are a bit more kind of wild, fun adventures.
Yeah,
kind of like the Wild West, but they're kind of all nautical based. There's a lot of ocean involved, and our main character is Ryan R.B. Bodine, who's a beach bum, bit down on his luck. Most of you guys know that I originally started these books with David Behrens, and if you know Dave's a great guy and a great writer. His main series is Troy Bodine, and those books are great if anyone hasn't read them. And Ryan Bodine is Troy's younger brother, and he's basically following in his footsteps. And he's one of these guys, nothing goes right, everything goes wrong, and he's down on his luck, and he finally gets a bit of an opportunity to go and find some treasure, basically. And that's how it all begins in Havana Fury. Things obviously goes badly. But he's been alive for 4 books now, so it couldn't have been that bad.
Yeah, I really like them. I like the sort of fun slapstick almost style. Alison says there's a lot of banter in these books.
Yeah.
And I think she's right, actually. I think banter is a good word for it. It is very light-hearted. They've got that sort of...
Bad things do happen, and some pretty terrible bad guys in these books. But the banter between RB and Megan, who's his sidekick, is really kind of like... It's kind of a romantic edge to it, but it will never happen because they're just too stubborn and just, they banter too much. So, but yeah, great fun. And I did really enjoy writing these books. But I said to Luke just before we came on air, it's been a couple of years since I finished the last one, I think, around. And I don't really remember that much about the stories because I've obviously written so many other books since then. So
yeah,
I'd love to hear what you guys think because you probably remember more than I do.
Yeah, I enjoyed them. What you've done here, though, is you picked quite a lot of sort of legends, haven't you? Like Atlantis and the Missing Papers of Hemingway, for the 2 that I know. How did you choose those? How did you choose sort of the topic or the mystery that they were going to follow?
Well, this original concept was David Behrens, and he wanted to do something a bit more wild as well. So we just did a bit of thinking about it and came up with the legends. I mean, at that time, I hadn't heard about Hemingway's papers. In fact, my Mrs. Leslie, she came up with the idea for the cover of Atlantis with the sunken Christ statue, which is a real thing. So we just wanted to go all across the globe, tropical and ocean based. So what better than Atlantis? The Hemingway stuff all takes place in Cuba. which is obviously a cool island. And then we go up into Colombia for El Dorado Gold, which is on a famous lake, so that's got a lot of water in it too. Just wild legends that you can basically play with, and because it's fiction, just make it up basically.
Yeah, no, I like that. And you've got some pretty bad sort of nemesis, some pretty bad antagonists in these stories as well, or a particular organization, isn't there, that they come up against?
Yes, there's we've got. I'd never heard of these as well. That Dave come up with the idea. It's called the Congregation for the Light, and they are a real entity. They began in London in about the mid 19th century, and now they have an office in New York somewhere. And they are very powerful, and they believe they are descendants of the Atlanteans, obviously of Atlantis. They come in Atlantis Storm. So they're a real group. They're kind of like the Illuminati, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, these are just, there is a lot of, I mean, can't say fact because a lot of this is legendary stuff.
Yeah,
but
legend is probably a better word than facts, isn't it? Or myth.
But these groups do exist, that's the point.
And you didn't get any suspicious characters following you after you'd written this, or any like threats through the post or whatever?
Always have been all my life.
I mean, that is a concern, isn't it? As a thriller writer, you upset the wrong person. And...
I live in Mexico, and I have set 2 books here, and I have often wondered, how factual I should get, because you never know, you might pick up one of the books and have a read.
Yeah, that's it. No, but they're great fun books. I really enjoyed them, and the pages just turn themselves. It's one of those. Not that the other books don't, but these are particularly sort of fun.
Well, it's just a bit more. Even though some of the stuff is quite heavy, it's just a bit more light-hearted. It's not. They're not. How can I put this without sounding unprofessional? They were easier to write because it's not so serious. They don't take themselves too seriously. So quite easy to write, which I think makes them very easy to read as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. Good afternoon or a couple of afternoons reading is all you need for one of these, and you can dive straight in and sort of enjoy it from the off. You don't need to have read the others or know anything. It's not a deep book, that you really need to an intense book. I do know some thrillers can be a little bit intense, can't they? It's particularly one of those that I find really intense, or have found really intense, are the Lisbeth Salander ones. I think also it's they're just really dense, loads of names to remember, lots of facts and figures you've got to do. You can't, an hour reading that feels like about 3 or 4 hours reading a book like this or a normal one. Or the Ludlam ones are quite similar to that as well.
That was the idea for this series, just something a bit light-hearted and just fun, really just fun.
Yeah, that's it. And you've got a sale on one of these coming up.
I do, yeah. I've most of you guys who are readers know what BookBub is. It's like the big mailing newsletter blast where, and as authors, it's like the holy grail. If we can get ourselves a BookBub featured deal, that's usually very good news. They're really expensive. I mean, if you don't mind me saying this, to get Hemingway Found chosen for a BookBub, that cost me $800. Now, it's only a 99-cent sale, which means I have to sell an awful lot of books just to get my money back on that. So I think it's on the 15th of November, so just in a week or two. And if you're a member of BookBub, if you're a subscriber to BookBub, you're going to get this email alert with my book in. Please buy it. It's 99 cents. And obviously, if we have a really good day, we'll probably get a bestseller tag as well, which is really good for the rest of the series. So I'll be reminding you guys nearer the time. But if you haven't already got it, it's 99p worldwide. And it's not just on Amazon either. It's on all of the other stores this time. I've never done that before. So it's on Google, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, Apple, everywhere, all the other small stores as well. So no excuse.
Yeah, I'm sure will you be posting about that in your Facebook things and newsletter things and whatever?
Yeah, I'll be posting it everywhere because this is a big deal. Like this is, as I said, it's the holy grail. This is only the second BookBub featured deal I've had in 7 years. So it's hard to get. So I need to maximize its potential.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you'll do well with it, and I think it'll be a good boost to this series, because I'm sure that once people see one. I mean, it drives traffic to the others. People go on it, they see Hemingway fan, and they're like, "Oh, I'll get that." But also, whilst I'm here, I might as well buy them all, or I might get the box set, or whatever it might be. So.
Havana Fury is always just 99 pence, 99 cents anyway. And it's not about making money, guys. I just want to make that clear. Obviously, I like selling books, but it's not really. It's just about exposure and getting more eyes on the product. So obviously, the more I sell, the more money I make. But at only 30 cents royalty per book, there's not much money to be made. You know, it's just about exposure and trying to get more of the other ones to sell as well.
That's it, exactly. Let's have a quick look over at the comments. Fiona says she loved Silent Nights. It was great fun. Really good book. Sue.
That's
says,
my mom. Hello, Mom.
Hi. Hi, Sue. Good to see you. Alison says there's a lot more banter in these books. We talked about that one already. And she says, I think I mentioned in Eldorado Gold that James Bond Ryan is not, but that's what makes him so appealing to the readers. Yes, I think you're right. He is a bit of bumbling, isn't he? He's a bit of a
He's one of those guys. He'll do whatever it takes. He's a good guy. He's a really good heart. He's a bit of a softie, but he'll get there in the end. You know.
There's also a lot of drinking in these books. I think I remember.
He does like a beer. This was interesting. This was a challenge because most of my other characters in my Kane books are usually English. Kane's English. Yeah. So I was writing this from an American, and not only just an American, but a Florida beach bum. So his voice is different, his accent is different, the terminology and phrases that he uses. I mean, I had to do quite a lot of research just to get his character right, which I was very pleased when David told me I did a good job. So there you go.
Oh, great.
Because he's a Florida beach bum, or almost. So
yeah, he's one of them.
So check him out if you haven't already. Thank you so much.
That's it. And will there be more books in this series then, or is this one that is a sort of a finished series?
No, it's not finished. There's a cover for the next book in the series, which is called Yucatan Hell. That's set in Yucatan, obviously, that everyone knows. Well, if you don't know,
I don't know.
It's where Cancun is on the Mexican East Coast. It's where the Aztec pyramids are, jungle, all sorts of amazing stuff out there. But haven't touched that. I've had the cover for probably at least 18 months, but haven't done. I'm not going to say too much, but there's a publishing company interested in this series. That's all I'm prepared to say about that.
Interesting. Yeah, that could be good, couldn't it?
So it could become. Yeah. I can't really. I'm not going to say anymore.
No, don't say any more. But I think it's a watch this space moment, isn't it? With that and sort of see how
it's very flattering that a publishing company is interested in it.
Absolutely. And I suppose that would inspire more books, to come potentially in the series. Yeah. I mean, you've left it open, haven't you? Obviously, the final one.
Yes, it's open. Yeah, it's open. Definitely, I would love to write 3 or 4 more books in this series, and I've got a couple of pages in the notebook of where I could take RB after, but busy, as you know.
Yeah, I mean that is always it, isn't it? Like, I think you can sort of lose focus on what's important, can't you? If you just do, you do think, I can write 3 books this month or this year or this whatever,
Exactly. Yeah,
it just gets a bit silly.
It's a fun. I definitely want to write more RB stories because they're just really fun.
Yeah. No, they sound really fun, and I've enjoyed reading them. And I look forward to. And the fact he's got this little plane, hasn't he? And he flies around sort of the Caribbean in this little plane. You know, and I think it's one of those books where the places are, like all your books are actually, where the places become a bit of a character themselves. He clearly. I can imagine. I mean, I've been to Florida before, but not travelled in this sort of way. I can imagine someone like him just bumping into him in some, spit and sawdust bar on the Florida Keys.
This guy, he lived on a boat, just on a little houseboat because it's all he could afford. He only owns like a pair of flip flops and 1 pair of old boots. He wears stupid Hawaiian shirts. He's just.
I mean, who would do that?
Yeah, not me. It's just a really laid back guy, and with a massive heart, and just wants to get a lucky break, just once, finally, after all these years. But there's only one way to find out if that happens, of course, and that's snag a copy or two.
Yes, exactly. That's it. That's it. And there is always, I do love buried treasure books, the books that are all about sort of hunting that mystical buried treasure. I've not written one myself yet, but I think I will do at some stage.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. These books aren't really a buried treasure chase. There is we call it in our literary world the MacGuffin. It's the thing that the main characters are going after, and sometimes it could, like Indiana Jones is going after the lost ark, for example. Or Cain in Condor Prophecy, Cain was trying to find the lost city of the Incas. In this case, there are some artifacts, but actually it's something else. He's trying in El Dorado Gold, for example, he's trying to uncover a legend. Doesn't actually have any treasure. Gold is a bit of a misnomer. It's complicated, but you know, a main character has to want something. And it doesn't always have to be something tangible or physical, like gold.
No, exactly. But he's also a very, what's the word? A very moral man from my memory of this book. He's not the fact that there's these people doing bad stuff, that becomes a thing as well. He's not the sort of guy to turn the other cheek and let people just get on with, let the world crumble or whatever the threat is, you know.
His sidekick is a marine biologist, Megan Simmons. I think Simmons or Simons. Simmons. And she's actually the one who's more interested in the tangible finds, the archaeological finds, whereas RB is just after a bit more justice, really. Yeah. But together they drive each other on, and they're a good team. They're a good team.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think you'll ever write a book from the perspective of the bad person, or do you think you'd ever be interested in that? Because a lot of your characters, I know Ridley serves close to the line, and there are characters in your books that do bad stuff for the right reasons. But do you think you could ever do a sort of Joker-esque book?
Yes. In short, it's a good question. I have a book in mind that I probably won't get to for 2 or 3 years, but it's just a standalone, a bit more literary, but it is definitely from the point of view of the bad guy. Although you might not know that until the end.
Oh, I see. It.
It's a fascinating idea that I really, really want to write, but I just don't think I can. It wouldn't be as marketable as some other books. So it can probably wait a couple of years. But yeah, definitely, I want to do that at some point. I really want to explore that.
Yeah, I think that takes some creativity, doesn't it, to sort of flip the script and make people pine for. That's the wrong word, but like root for. That's what I mean. Root for the baddie, you know. I think that's a sign of a good writer in a way.
Well, yeah, I think I really want to do it. Whether I can or not is another question.
I'm sure you can. You can.
I'll have 20 more books to practice before I get to that one.
Well, that's it. You know, there's times to write different books, I think, in your career, isn't there? And Neil Gaiman talks about his book, the Graveyard Boy, I think it's called, Graveyard something. I've not read it myself, but he talks about having this book in his mind for 20 years, but not feeling like he had the skill to make it happen. And it's about a young boy that's raised by ghosts, apparently, and he didn't have the skill to make for 20 years until he finally sat down and read that. And I think there's an element of truth to that. You know, each time your stories get a bit more complex, the characters get a bit more rich and a bit more sort of intense, and they flesh out with each story that you write, I think.
Definitely. The book I really want to write the most of all of my ideas, and I've got hundreds of ideas, is actually the follow-up to my debut, which is nothing to do with action, adventure, or thrillers or anything like that. It's a literary book, and I don't know how many of you have read it. I Have Lived Today. That was my debut from 7.5 years ago, I think. But the follow-up book is going to be from a point of view of one of the peripheral characters in that story, basically a tramp. And I've already written 10,000 words on that, but that was like 6 years ago, and I've still got them. And it's very, I mean, how can I say this? This is going to sound big-headed, but I don't mean it that way. But I want it to be like a Dickens novel.
Yeah.
So elements of humor, some amazing characters, funny names, and it's the story of his life. He was born in 1899, so he lives basically in three different centuries because he's gonna live to over 100. Anyway, that's the book I want to write the most, but again, that's probably years away, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a hard one to know, isn't it? Exactly what book to write next, and whether to sort of go for that. But you're right, it is a literary book. I've read it, and it's a great story. I really enjoyed it. But it's a world away from how there was a real jump there in your sort of writing life, wasn't there? From that first book up to Condor Prophecy, that was 2 or 3 years later than that?
Probably. Well, 3 years later when I started it, but 4 years till I published it. I think like that. That one took a long time because I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, just learning a new craft, I suppose. I think that is. I think in a way, as a young writer, as a fresh writer, you do sometimes go down that literary side a bit more. Like, I know my first draft of Kathmandu was a lot more literary than it is now. There was a lot more talking about feelings and talking about growing as a character and all those sorts of things, less talking about the actual action, which is there, but just was brought out with the more editing that I did over the course of time.
The trick is, I mean, I've learned a lot and I'm still learning, and I will learn every day I write, I'll learn something new. But the trick is, the story is the things that happen in the background, like the action and the MacGuffin and all those things, really are secondary to what's happening to the character personally. We call it the character arc, of course, and if the character doesn't have his own personal journey, it doesn't really matter what's happening in the story, because it's just not that interesting. So I think you'll agree, we've tried very hard in all of our books to make the character's journey the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the most important thing. Yeah, you're right. Let's have a quick look over at the comments. Alison says that it was an excellent coming of age book. She enjoyed it, which is good to hear. And Ray says, unlike the Aztec and Inca empires, the Maya, is it Maya? The Maya are much more noted in fiction. Maya are much more noted in fiction for knowledge of black art curses than for gold and riches. I suppose that's harking back to what we were saying a few minutes ago about looking for a thing, like a tangible object, the MacGuffin, as we would say that it is. Yeah. That is, it is an interesting sort of twist, isn't it? And I suppose if not in a minute, maybe in a minute, but when you sit down to write this book, you will be writing it in the same way, or you'll think about writing it in the same way as you write now. Every page has to count, every scene, something has to move, the threat has to be there, the tension has to build, all of the things that we as thriller writers think. Do you think it'll be a challenge to disconnect from that and just let a scene run in the way that you would have done when you'd written that first book all those years ago, or the way a literary writer would?
You mean the follow-up to the original?
Yeah.
I don't know. It will be a challenge going back to a different genre, really, because that really is a literary. Can't say it's a comedy because
no.
But Dickens' books are hilarious. He doesn't mean them to be. They're just hilarious. They're so good, but it's all about the characters and what. So I think it will be very difficult. It'll probably be the hardest book I've ever written. But why not? I love the challenge, and my idea for it, I think, is very good. I just have to execute it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
I'm not going to worry too much about that for a couple of years.
No, you've got a lot of other writing and a lot of other books to sort of get on with. So, flipping back to sort of Hemingway Found and the Bodine series, can you think of a way, or do you think they will ever meet your other series? Will they ever? Will Bodine and Kane and Ridley and these characters ever? Are they in the same universe, or are they in completely different worlds? Is there a possibility that their paths could cross?
There absolutely is a possibility, because they're all set roughly now.
Yeah.
They're all alive as we speak. They're not. Let's say Ryan Bodine. He's he's essentially a treasure hunter, although, as we just explained, not exactly treasure in the tangible sense. But he's after things. He goes to similar places to Kane does. And there's certainly, I don't think those two would ever be rivals because they're both good guys. That but definitely they could meet up. It could be like some kind of Marvel universe where we get Leo and Alyssa, we get Bodine.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
We get all of our other mates to lend their characters to a story. I mean, why not? I think that would be so cool. What I've thought about a lot is getting together 6 or 8 of us in our sort of genres and throwing one book together, each writing 10,000 words, and then just selling that book for charity.
I think that's a great idea because you could do it for different perspectives. So I'd write Leo's perspective of what that event might be. Yeah. You'd write Kane or Ridley's perspective, or whoever. The next person to write the next perspective. That would be so much fun. And then obviously they all have, they're all involved in whatever the thing is, whatever the plot is in some way.
Yeah, I just think that might be difficult to pull together.
It would be difficult to pull together.
Somebody would have to organise that, and who's going to volunteer to do that? Not me, not yet. But in theory, I'd love to do that, and just sell it cheap, make it short, just so we can get it done quickly. But then just for charity, just for a good cause.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea, and I think anything sort of authors working together. I mean, it wouldn't take that long, would it? Because you think the problem shared is the problem halved or quartered or whatever.
Yeah. Well, if each of us only needs to write maybe 2 or 3 scenes, like 10,000 words each.
Probably a week's work, isn't it? Really, or maybe a little more.
A lot less for some people. But anyway, just an idea.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea for some point, some indeterminate point in the future. Yeah. Put it in that big folder of ideas that we've both got that we'd like to get to.
Some kind of Christmas story. Or it could just be they just meet up for fun and there's no adventure to have. You just find them at some kind of travel convention, or I don't know, and they just end up.
I think there'd have to be some adventure, or maybe they do that and something goes wrong.
Yeah, something at the event goes wrong.
They go and see Ralph Fiennes doing a talk on how he climbed Everest or whatever he's done, or some other explorer.
I guess whoever the most famous of the authors is among us gets to have their guy be the lead pack. So let's say we got just fantasy world now, but we got DCI Ryan involved, LJ Ross's character. She's easily the most famous of us at this point, so he would have to be and he's a detective sergeant, so he's probably the most capable anyway.
Yeah, that's it. It would be hard though to mix those two genres, wouldn't it? Like detectives with our sort of private investigator / adventurers.
But it's fiction, so
it would be fun.
Just for fun, and so our readers aren't going to judge us too harshly if it's a load of crap because it's for a good cause.
Yeah, exactly. Let's have a quick look over here and see what people are saying. Fiona says that would be great fun. She is up for that. As you say, like the Marvel Universe, the mashup or the challenge. Yes. That sounds fantastic. What a great name as well.
Fiona, you guys come up with the outline then.
Yeah.
A list of fictional characters that who you'd like to include, and perhaps we'll get the ball rolling.
Yeah, that's it. No, I think that's it. Come from the readers, absolutely. We'll hand it over to you. I've opened my second beer. I didn't know whether I'd go for 2, but I decided to because I was enjoying the conversation. Another one from Alison's collection. I'm down to my last few now from my birthday haul. This one's called Twisted Hop. 4.7% though, so bit of a strong one. Yeah,
0% water.
0% water. That's it. But no, I'm enjoying it. I went look at this good. fiery one. Yeah.
So you guys, do you have any questions for me? I guess about RB, the Ryan Bodine books, because you probably have read them way more recently than I finished writing them. So that would be fun to try and remember some of the stuff that happens. And Luke, may I ask you, whilst they're all thinking of their questions, what are you working on right at the moment?
Istanbul.
Oh, right, okay.
The next Leo and Alyssa book. I'm about 11,500 words in as of this morning. So I've been doing about 1,000, 2,000 words a day.
Excellent.
keeping it quite low key, keeping it quite, not pushing myself too hard with it, because I know it's easy to burn out. I think on first draft, in my mind, I know you plan more intensely than I do, so I think you've got more like, what you're writing. I've got a sort of a general structure, but it's always changing. Even now, I've put in extra scenes that I think are great, and I've almost got through that difficult first third, whereby the first third of my books is the characters at home doing the thing, and then the inciting incident happens and they go off to the place that they've got to do. I find once I get them in the place that they need to be, it goes a lot more quickly. It's that first bit at the start that can be quite difficult. So I'm pleased to.
I think that's a strong point of yours. Is you stick to a kind of tried and tested literary formula, which is I think that's the save the cat or heroes.
I don't know what it's called. It's 3-act structure. I looked up when I did it.
And I don't really do that, and that's probably a weakness of mine. I have a very solid outline, but it's an outline that I've just formulated myself. It doesn't come from any literary structure, which is probably something I need to really work harder on.
But I think you probably put those things in naturally. I had this discussion with someone the other day. I can't remember who it was, but it was a young writer who was writing their first book, and they were saying how they didn't like the sort of constraints that working towards a formula like that puts on them. And I said, I don't think it's a constraint. I think it's actually I think it's an expectation. I think because you've read so many stories and watched and been involved with so many stories that conform to that structure, you naturally do it without even thinking about it, you know. And if you wrote a story without a resolution, whether it was, even if it, it's just stopped it. Yeah, of course you might leave the resolution to book 2 or book 3 or whatever, fine. But if you didn't have one at all, even you as a writer would be dissatisfied by that, let alone the readers,
I think you are right. It just, we're mostly all readers anyway, and I've read thousands of books, so I kind of know it innately.
Yeah.
And it probably is in there in more or less the right places, the beats that you need to keep the story going. But yeah, I don't think about that too much. So hopefully I'm lucky enough that I do just do it naturally. But
yeah, that's it. But no, it's going well. It's going to be a good book. It's it's set in Istanbul. It's got a great opening scene in the what's the place called? The Hagia Sophia, like the ancient mosque there on in the center of Istanbul. Awesome. And really, really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it. I'm looking forward to sharing it and telling you more about it. In fact, when it gets a bit further on. Oh, we've got a couple of random questions come in. First one from Alison says, Steve, if you could only play or watch any sport for the rest of your life, what would it be and why? When I said random question, I thought it would be writer based, but fine, we'll go for it.
Well, I mean, that is a tough question. I really do love sport. Football's mostly my game. I played at a decent level for quite a long time, and I still love to have a kick about every once in a while. But I think my playing days are pretty much done now. Every time I play, I get really stupidly injured.
Oh, no.
And I do love to watch football, but on the TV, I don't like going to games because every time I go to a game, my team loses and it's terribly boring. So there's two answers to the watching question. If I could watch on TV, I'd probably watch football. But if it was going to live games, I'd probably choose cricket, because I love sitting in the sun watching cricket with a beer for a few hours. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing I found. I've been to a couple of football games, and the fact that you can't drink beer in the stadium, I found a real
It's coming back slowly now. I think they're trialing it back into English stadiams.
I think they should. That's half the point, surely, of going. And then when people say they can do it in cricket, I'm like, brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. And if it was to play, because as I said, you guys know I like golf now, and I love golf. So to play would probably be golf.
Yeah, particularly in the Mexican sun, I can imagine.
Yeah, I miss it. I haven't had time since I got back, but good question, man.
Ray says, I don't know if it's the question. I don't think it is. Actually read the RB books back when they first came out. I actually better read Atlantis Storms on Dave's insistence. Good. I hope you enjoyed them, Ray. And Alison, how did you come up with the idea about finding Hemingway's lost manuscripts in Hemingway Found? I remember you said Leslie mentioned it, didn't she?
Leslie came up with some stuff for the Atlantis Storm story. You know what? I don't remember if it was my idea or Dave's. For the
probably yours. Go for it. Claim it.
It was my idea. Yeah, let's say so. But that's a true story as well. That Hemingway was living in Switzerland, and Hadley was back in Paris, and Hemingway asked her to bring the manuscripts down to him in Switzerland, and she was a bit scatty. And while she was boarding the train in Paris, they got stolen, and that's true. No one ever knew what happened to them, except now I do, because I made it up.
I really enjoyed those scenes at the start of that book, and I think there's something. Paris itself, for me, is a city that I will write about at some point. I haven't done it yet because I think, in a way, I need to do it justice, as any city that I write about, you know. But particularly Paris in that period of time, so the 1920s, you know, I think must have been a fantastic place to have written about and to have
any era in Paris is amazing. It's cheesy, but one of my favorite movies is Midnight in Paris, because it's set now, but also it's time travel. It goes back into the 20s, and you get to meet Hemingway, Fitzgerald, Gerard, Gertrude Stern, Picasso, Dali. They're all these brilliant singers, actors, writers, sculptors. They're all in that. I love that story. And Leslie and I were lucky enough to live in Paris for 4 months. It's just an amazing city. I love it.
It so really much. Is. Yeah, and there's so many artists that involved there. You know, Debussy, composers, Debussy, Satie. You know, all of you talk about that period. From not including the war years, but from sort of the end of the 1800s through to about the 1920s, 1930s, must have been the Belle Epoque.
So Luke, must have been a fantastic period. What you're really saying is, after Istanbul and after I move back to England next year, Leo and Alyssa book 8 is called Paris, and we have to go on a research trip to Paris.
It could be. I think it could work, actually. Yeah, I think it could work. And I think also, it's got the appeal. One of my worries is with choosing my destinations, I know you think about this as well, is to make them universally appealing. And I'm not just talking just for the American readers, I'm talking for readers across the world, whether they're Indian, whether they're Australian, American, Canadian, whatever. But I think Paris has got that appeal, because I think people, whether they are in Australia, New Delhi or New York, know the Eiffel Tower, know Notre Dame, know the River Seine, know these sorts of places, you know, and I think it's got that same appeal.
I mean, if you are right, we do have to be careful from a marketing point of view. And I've written now, with you and alone, I've written 3 books in India, and I thought marketing wise that is a bit risky, but it was a passion. I wanted to write about Mumbai, and so too bad, you know, I just did it. But you're right, Paris will have universal appeal, as would London, probably Rome, New York, those classic capital cities. I mean, amazing venues.
And we've both shared ideas, which we won't share live now, about potential books in London to come in the future, because I think that could be another great one, which we both know very well, a city that we both know very well. In fact, whenever I go there, I feel there's something. Not home is the wrong word, because I've never lived there, but I know it I'm very familiar with it, and I like wandering around there, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. Alison says she can hear the cockerel. It's more like 6 or 7 of them. And if I wasn't vegan, you wouldn't be able to hear them anymore.
You'd be having a nice roast lunch, wouldn't you?
I'm vegan, so I have to suffer them, unfortunately.
Yeah. You have to just put up with them. Yes, good fight or chase in the Eiffel Tower. Yeah, and there's also been some great action films already set in Paris, hasn't there? There was a Bond film, View to a Kill, had a chase scene from the Eiffel Tower, where Grace Jones is in it, and she sort of hang glides from the top of the Eiffel Tower after assassinating someone.
I don't really remember those old Bond movies. I need to watch them again. I love the new ones, but I haven't seen any of the old ones for years now.
Yeah, have you seen the most recent one?
No.
I went to see it last week, and it's mad. If you've seen it, in the comments, let me know. It's brilliant. I really enjoyed it.
I don't even think I've seen the one before that, because
What was the one before that? I don't even remember. They've all sort of merged together,
the
haven't
one
they?
that
'Cause it's been
starts
so
in
long.
Day of the Dead in Mexico. It starts then. That's the first scene. I think I've seen that scene, but I don't remember the movie at all. Maybe it just was quite good.
Yeah, yeah. But no, there's been so many. Paris is a great place, and it's so close to us. Like when I go to London, because my train goes into St Pancras in London from Nottingham. The next platform is the Eurostar. Like platform, I got on platform 4. That's platform 5. So you see it there. You know, train to Paris. You know, Gare du Nord. I'm like, oh yeah.
That's one of the reasons Leslie and I are moving back to England, so we can be so close to all of those other cool places for cheap train tickets or cheap flights. Paris,
That's
Brussels, all those kinds of cool places.
Yeah, that's it. Do a bit of travelling for a few months or a few weeks or whatever. Oh, cool! You got a box set of James Bond in lockdown and watched the lot. There must be about 40 films or 35 films or something like that.
I think it's 30 something, isn't it?
Yeah, they're brilliant.
20.
I really like them. Yeah, I really like the Bond films. I grew up. I talk about them every show, it seems, actually. But yeah, there we go. Cool. Right, we're gonna hang around. 21, she says. Fiona says, not quite as many as I imagined then. Cool. We're gonna hang around for another 5 or 6 minutes, something like that. If you've got any questions for Steve, regards the here we go. The box set, the Bodine box set. These 4 books, one of which is on offer in a week or so.
Well, if I may say, Havana Fury, which is the season opener, that's only ever 99 cents or 99 pence or 99 euro or whatever it is. So that's a really good place to start this series because it's just a really great, fun, fast-paced, really fun action thriller. All sorts of bad guys and missiles and explosions and treasures and all sorts of stuff. And you can see Ryan Bodine is a scuba diver. He's a wreck diver. You can see the divers on the cover there. So that's a really good place to start. But yeah, I reiterate my desire for you to check out the Hemingway Found book because right now it's 99 cents, 99 pence worldwide on every store you can imagine. So Luke, I don't know if you can manage to put up that graphic with the 99 thing on.
I can try.
No problem if not.
Keep talking. We'll see how I get on.
Yeah. Ray says Munich to Vienna. Yeah. Those are great cities as well. I've been to Vienna. I really, really enjoyed that there. And Alison asked, which location did you enjoy writing about with Ryan? Yeah, obviously all of them, because we chose them for reasons because we thought they'd be fun places. But they actually go to Spain on the quest to find Atlantis, which
there we go.
Cool.
It's taken up a bit of space though.
So I enjoyed writing about Spain because I've spent a lot of time in Spain. My mother lived in Spain for 6 or 7, 8 years, a few years back. Hello, DC. Hi, mate. And I really love Spain enough that I'm going to write a Ridley book set in Spain.
Oh, nice.
In fact, I might even do that as my second NaNoWriMo this month if I can manage it.
Second one.
Because the next cane is on hold for a bit, as I mentioned to you yesterday. So, yeah, Spain maybe. Cuba's great fun because it goes to Hemingway House and it's not what it seems. There was also a lot of scenes in Washington DC in those Bodine books, so that was kind of fun too. That's a good city.
Yeah, there's loads of great locations in there, isn't there, in those books?
Yeah.
And they're all quite exciting ones because you know the sort of Caribbean vibes. I think I need to set a book part of my New York was set on St. Lucia, but I'd like to set one exclusively, I think, on a Caribbean island, also for the fun of going and researching it.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I had an amazing chat with a guy I've been introduced to recently. Did you guys ever see the I think it was National Geographic about 10 years ago. It was The Sea Hunters with Clive Cussler. Brilliant show. Clive Cussler, before he was a writer, he was a wreck diver. He salvaged some quite famous shipwrecks.
Wow.
Anyway, the guy I spoke to yesterday was the producer of that show and the owner of that production company. and he's good friends with Clive, and I had a really good chat about him, how he met Clive, and what kind of a guy Clive was. But this guy's also a Freemason, and he was telling me about some of the history around Washington D.C., that stuff that most people would never hear. And it was one of the most interesting hours of my life. So knowledgeable, this guy. Great fun. And what's really fun is I'm not going to say much at all, but this guy wants to work with me on a project, and this is the guy who produced Clive Cussler's The Sea Hunter show. So watch this space.
Exciting. God, you've had an exciting week, mate, with all sorts of different things.
It's been an interesting few days with a couple of other interesting things happening. So
yeah,
but no guarantees, never know. Just potential.
Absolutely. You've got to keep trying and seeing what sticks, haven't you? So yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, I think we're going to wrap up. It's a bit shorter than usual, but this is the second time we've took an hour of your time to drink beer and talk rubbish. So, and I know Steve's got another 10,000 words to do today.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So thanks so much for tuning in to Books and Beer as ever. Please share this with people who you think will like it. That's really important to me to get as many people watching these things as possible. Also, if you're on Facebook, you can like the group or join the group or the page or whatever it's called. The terminology eludes me. Or if you're watching on YouTube, it's subscribe and like to that is really important. I'm back next week with a writer called Dawn Brooks, who writes mysteries set really near where I live in Nottingham. She lives in Derby, just about 10-15 miles away. So I'm excited to talk to her about sort of turning our local area into mysteries. So that could be that will be an interesting conversation. Yeah, so looking forward to that. Steve, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Luke. Thank you.
You're absolutely welcome. And thank you, ladies and gents, for tuning in. We will speak to you again soon. Cheers.
Take care, everybody. Have a great day.